A revolutionary device lets child psychologist Catherine Deane enter the mind of a boy named Edward Baines. Even though she created a nice scenario for Edward, he transforms into a monster. Disappointed, Catherine presses a microchip in her hand, which lets her wake up at the Campbell Center. Dr. Henry West and Dr. Miriam Kent examine how Catherine's brain works at the center. They watch her and Edward, who is now in a coma and hooked up to the machine that lets Catherine get into his mind. Afterward, Mrs. Baines discloses that her husband plans to move Edward to a hospital. Henry disagrees, mentioning their long-term commitment to the project. However, Catherine realizes they doubt her abilities as a child psychologist. Mr. Baines, who funds the research, emphasizes the lack of recent progress and questions if Catherine's interactions with their son are real or just hallucinations. In the meantime, Carl Rudolph Stagger goes to a broken-down building where he watches a drowned woman in a glass cell. Back at the center, Catherine's team has been given another 6 months to treat Edward. She comes up with a bold idea. She wants to let Edward enter her mind instead. This idea comes from her experiences as a social worker. Dr. Kent is worried about how this will affect the minds of both Edward and Catherine. That night, Stogger cleans the body of his most recent victim, together with his dog Valentine. Stogger lifts himself up with a hook attached to his skin by rings, hovering over the lifeless body. He watches a video of the woman desperately begging for her life as she's slowly submerged in water. He becomes excited and experiences pleasure from the gruesome scene. The next day, authorities find the body dumped over a bridge. It's the 7th victim of the same brutal killer. Detective Cole and FBI agents Ramsey and Novak examine the body. Ramsey notices a metal collar on the victim's neck, a gruesome sign of Stogger's ownership. Stogger, meanwhile, observes a woman, Julia, at a park, but suddenly feels a bad headache. Meanwhile, the FBI later identifies that this victim is similar to the others, but with one exception: a strand of dog hair from an albino dog. With the victims all being bleached, Novak believes an unusual albino dog fits the murderer's peculiar taste. One evening, Julia is reversing her car when she hears a dog whimpering. She spots Valentine behind her vehicle and, concerned she may have hit him, goes to check, which allows Stogger to capture her. The next day, Novak orders officers to track the albino dog and a truck with similar tire prints found near the bridge. The evidence is too apparent, leading Novak to think that the killer wants to be caught. When the authorities hear about Julia's disappearance, they visit her parents. Simultaneously, Ramsey gets information about a dog breeder who sold an albino puppy 3 years prior. The truck of the buyer matches the one from the bridge. The agents immediately move to the location. Unaware of the impending police arrival, Stogger is taking a bath when he suffers a seizure. Struggling to get his medication, he eventually collapses. Once the police arrive, they find Stogger unconscious, and he's rushed to the hospital. Julia isn't found at the house, but they discover Stogger's basement and a video recording of the prior victims. Meanwhile, Julia wakes up trapped in a glass cell. At the hospital, doctors diagnose Stogger with Wells syndrome and schizophrenia, triggered by a dormant virus activated by trauma. Only Stogger knows Julia's location, but his mind is beyond reach. So, the doctors propose a solution. Bring Stogger to the Campbell Center for Catherine's team's expertise. They explain that Stogger keeps his victims alive for 40 hours before drowning them. The water filling this cell is automated, meaning Julia is on borrowed time. As Miriam gets Catherine and Stogger ready, Henry explains their mind-linking tech to the agents. Ramsey sees 3 stations in the room and learns they're used to have 2 psychologists connect to a patient's mind. But since Edward only responded to Catherine, they only kept her. The process begins, and Catherine enters Stogger's mind. She first observes a group baptizing a boy, then finds herself in a tunnel. There, she sees a black dog shaking off a red liquid. Spotting a boy running up a staircase, she follows. She finds him petting a horse, but he retreats from her. As Catherine reaches out to the horse, the young Stogger looks at surrounding clocks fearfully. Suddenly, he shoves Catherine away before a sheet of glass comes down, slicing the horse into pieces. Young Stogger escapes, and Catherine chases him, only to stop at the sight of glass cells with trapped women. Catherine sees gears on a cell in Stogger's mind and touches them, causing the cell to open and its trapped woman to move like a puppet. Suddenly, a large woman emerges from a cell, grabs Catherine, and takes her to a fancy room. Stogger comes to her, wearing a velvet fabric, and asks where she came from. Catherine is terrified, uses a chip on her hand to wake up. Back in the real world, Miriam helps Catherine to calm down. Henry tells Novak that Catherine's trip into Stogger's mind is risky. If Catherine starts thinking Stogger's world is real, it could hurt her in real life. Meanwhile, Julia is still trapped, begins praying as water fills and then stops in her cell. Later, Novak asks Catherine if she thinks she can save Stogger. Catherine answers saying everyone hides something. When she's inside a patient's mind, she feels their hidden feelings. But Stogger's mind has something terrible. Catherine admits that she struggles to understand how a criminal thinks. Novak admits that he too doesn't understand criminals. He used to be a prosecutor, but once he couldn't convict a man who later killed a little girl. This made him switch jobs to catch criminals before they commit crimes. Catherine remembers that young Stogger seemed to want to help her, so maybe he can tell her where Julia is. Catherine decides to go into Stogger's mind again and asks to have Valentine present, hoping this will make Stogger more cooperative. Just as they're about to begin, a power cut occurs. Once the power comes back, Catherine goes to check a circuit breaker. Suddenly, she finds herself in a glass cage in Stogger's mind. After escaping the cage and falling into a hole, she asks Valentine to lead her to Stogger. She follows the dog to a house, where she sees young Stogger washing dishes. To make him feel better, Catherine gives him a locket like the one Edward had, and tells him to shine a light on a mirror when he needs her. The boy accepts the locket, but they accidentally break a plate. Hearing this, Stogger's father enters the room. Catherine hides in a closet and watches as the man scolds his son for breaking the plate. Catherine tries to leave the closet but finds herself in a basin full of water and eels. When she looks again, she sees Stogger's stepmother trying to protect the boy. But the man reminds her that she's not his real mother and his real mother left them. Catherine hears the man hitting his son because he played with dolls, which makes her cry. The man then uses a hot iron on his son, causing the boy to scream in pain. When Catherine looks at the closet again, she sees a room where adult Stogger is taking organs from a woman's body. Carefully, she approaches Stogger. She tells him she wants to help him. Stogger doesn't believe her and insults her, which reminds Catherine of his father. This makes Stogger angry. He remembers his father holding him underwater during his baptism and then beating him after. Catherine says his father was evil, but Stogger just thinks he was stronger than him. Catherine insists that no child should be treated like that. This makes Stogger upset. He starts shouting, and Catherine asks him where Julia is. Stogger disappears into the darkness, then suddenly reappears as a monster and throws Catherine to the floor. Back in the real world, Miriam and Henry see Catherine's brain activity become dangerously high. They try to disconnect her from Stogger's mind, but it's risky. Miriam suggests connecting herself to them, but Henry says it's too dangerous. Meanwhile, water starts filling Julia's cell again, but suddenly stops. Julia notices pipes on the ceiling of the cell and begins banging on the cell, calling for help. At the center, Novak volunteers to go into Stogger's mind to save Catherine, since he knows a lot about him from his investigation. Before they connect him, Miriam tells him to use something personal about Catherine to bring her back to reality. In Stogger's mind, Novak wakes up in a field with 3 women looking up at the sky. The women speak of their son who was taken by his father. Suddenly, young Stogger appears and shines a light from Catherine's locket. Novak follows the boy and finds Catherine chained to a bed. He removes the mask from her face, and she begins to seduce him. While he's distracted, Stogger puts a bag over Novak's head. Novak wakes up in a place where he's tied down. Catherine watches as Stogger comes and stabs Novak in the belly with scissors. Stogger then takes out Novak's insides and hangs it above him. Despite the pain, Novak tries to bring Catherine back to reality by talking about her little brother who died in a coma. Catherine snaps back to herself, goes to Stogger and stabs him, then everything around them changes. Novak and Catherine wake up in a new location. They see a young Stogger by a fancy glass cage with a woman dancing inside. Catherine thinks the cage is where Stogger keeps his victims, so she asks the young Stogger about it. Meanwhile, Novak recognizes some symbols from Stogger's basement on the cage. He has an idea and takes Catherine away, saying they need to leave now to find Julia. But Catherine resists because she wants to help the young Stogger. After some struggle, they wake up in real life just as water floods Julia's cell again. Novak immediately calls Cole and asks him to check some equipment in Stogger's basement. Novak is in pain, but his main focus is to save Julia. Cole identifies the equipment and finds the company that made it. At the same time, Catherine tells Miriam and Henry that she's okay and they should help Novak. But before they can reach him, Novak gets on a helicopter and leaves. Alone, Catherine decides to connect her mind with Stogger's again. This time, she presents herself as a motherly figure to the young Stogger. The boy wishes he could stay with her, but she explains it doesn't work like that. He then morphs into adult Stogger and recalls a memory of his cruel father. Novak, meanwhile, gets a lead on the equipment's original owner and heads to the location. Inside Catherine's mind, she battles the evil Stogger, injuring him, but he just laughs at her. Back in real life, Novak finds the secret location and rescues Julia, who's barely breathing. Meanwhile, in her mind, Catherine comforts the dying young Stogger until the real-life Stogger dies. Days later, Novak and Catherine meet at Stogger's house. They talk about Catherine's plan to let Edward into her mind. Novak is concerned, but Catherine reassures him. Later, Catherine and Edward enter a shared dream, which gives them both a glimmer of hope for the future. I love the concept of this movie. It's probably one of my favorite movies that Jennifer Lopez has done. What did you guys think?
Subscribe for more videos like this. Turn on notifications and leave a like. It really helps the channel.